Hey everybody, welcome to Ripstop on the Record episode 52. Today we are talking about the 5 ways you can cut weight on your current pack. I'm Jameson.
I'm Isaac.
I'm also Isaac. Okay, I'm Carter.
Yeah, that is true. He is Carter. So, quick industry update for you all. It's been a little while since we've had one of these, but I recently came across a really cool company on Instagram called, I think it's Arch Industries or ARCH Industries. They're from Italy. But there's a couple of things that I look for or that stand out when I'm ready to do like an industry update. And if you can produce an item that looks like it was made with high-tech machines, or if you're just doing interesting things I've never seen done before, then that's kind of a go-to that I'm probably going to talk about in the episode. And Arch Industries is definitely one of those that their stuff looks incredibly professional, but they're also just doing some really interesting things for MYOG packs, at least. Really detailed pieces, really awesome use of colorways and color blocks.
Laminates too.
Laminate fabrics. Yeah, they're doing some really, really cool stuff. So I would recommend, for those of you on Instagram, it's ARCH_IND, Arch_Industries, I think. But yeah, check them out, or arch-ind.com. But definitely would recommend. So that's our industry update. As for internal updates, Isaac, I think you got a tease for us.
Yeah, we may possibly, might have some new kits coming for a sale that happens typically, around the end of the November time frame. There may be one new kit. There may be 5 new kits.
Possibly.
Yeah, you'll just have to
stay alive till then.
Yeah. Come back to find out.
Yeah, that's all we're saying about that for now, but keep your eyes out. Let's just say the product seems working really hard.
Bro.
Yeah, keep your eyes out, like out of your body.
Yes, remove your eyes.
So you can see it coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could throw your eyeball and then see
around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be handy.
Definitely.
Or imagine if you could take it off and look under your project when you're sewing, so you can see I did sew over the part I wasn't supposed to.
Are you guys all right? A lot of dismemberment talk here.
Otherwise, internal-wise, just want to say welcome to Miranda, our new executive assistant here for Kyle and Jason. She's bringing a lot of expertise to the company that you may hear her on the episode one day. We don't know. But really, she's just helping everybody out there by helping Jason and Kyle have more time back. So welcome, Miranda, to the team. We're really glad you're a part of it. All right. On to the main episode.
Let's do it.
So, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we're telling you about the 5 ways you can cut weight on your current pack. We'll get into what that means here in a second.
Yeah, just a quick disclaimer. We love all packs. We don't want to discriminate against any one particular heavyweight brand.
Just love packs.
Or any other heavyweight brands that you might be able to find at, like a 3-letter big box retailer. Yeah, all packs are cool. Just get outside and use an Alice pack if you have to. Still works.
I would say a disclaimer to the disclaimer is that definitely the most important thing is getting outside, making your own gear, making modifications that make experiencing your hobbies more experienceable.
More fulfilling.
No, experienceable.
Okay.
But yeah, if we were discriminating, Isaac of 6 months ago wouldn't be on this podcast. So there is growth to be had for all of those out there.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just say the worst that we've done is not going to be about any pack. It's already been done, so hopefully this is actually just a breeze.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, shout out to Jason Smith, our GM here. He donated his Baltoro 70, 75.
I think it's a 75 or something. It's in the 70s, just like he is, but I'm not sure which one,
age-wise.
We're not sure which one is bigger, his age or the liter capacity, actually.
Very close, both of which are related to papyrus, so I know that.
But yeah, Jason,
also both the pack and Jason have lots and lots of life experience
and a few patches along the way.
So we got firsthand experience of how much experience this pack has. If you're seeing the YouTube video, then we just brought the pack up. And if you aren't on YouTube, then we actually created a blog for this whole episode with all photos, and it's going to talk about all the tips that we have and how much weight we cut off and everything. So go check out that blog post in the show notes when it's safe for you to do so. Don't do that if you're driving. But yeah, shout out to Jason. He donated this pack. He has a ton of miles on this, but it was kind of our first idea of saying, like, how do we help people that are currently own gear make it lighter? It's not always feasible to buy a $500 pack. It's not always, you can't just go find a DCF pack all the time, unless for Carter. That's a separate story, though.
Ashley, if you're listening, he meant $5 pack.
$5 pack.
Can't just be, going against the budget like that.
Yeah. So let's get closer to the details.
So first off, this is from 2004, in case you guys were wondering. I talked to Jason about that today to figure out. So it's a 2004 Gregory Baltoro 70-something. It's definitely huge. So the idea, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but the idea of buying gear or having gear that you already own and modifying it as your hiking style changes or your needs change, or if you just have certain features that your pack is lacking, since it is designed by someone who's designing for basically millions of people instead of just you. I think that that's something that I do way more than I just make stuff from scratch, because there are lots of, even, like I have a lot of cottage gear. A lot of it I've purchased to support my friends in the cottage industry, or to support like the whole DIY, make your own gear, small business movement. But there are still things that I'm like, all right, I know, for instance, I know that I'm going to take even a Z-Pax tent and I'm going to change out the cordage to something that's reflective, because it doesn't have reflective cord with it. I'm probably going to change it to a smaller reflective cord than is on there. They're just things that I do. A big concept, and something that I have even made fun of people in the past for doing, is I get that cutting your toothbrush in a third, that's not changing your outdoor experience, and it would be foolish to say otherwise. But I think that it's a part of like this game that you're playing, to be like, how can I make my hiking experience more enjoyable? Well, if I have all the things that I need and I'm still comfortable, but it's less weight, so it's easier to hike, that's better in my book, right? So for me, it's all just like this mindset that you can get in. That's like you're competing against yourself to say, all right, well, how light can I make this, but still like have a frame that can hold a bunch of weight,
Still be comfortable.
Yeah. So that's where it comes from. Just wanted to say, like, I know, like, I'm not recommending that everybody just go out and just so it weighs a pound less, that you just like cut off your shoulder straps and your hip belt and you just carry it like a duffel bag. That was something that was important to me in this, and is that there was talk of us basically, and we'll get to this more later, but like cutting, let's take off the hip belt. But then it's like a really complex design frame that engineers spent lots of time designing, and it carries weight really well. So that's probably too far. But anyways, just wanted to say,
probably would have saved 3.5 pounds.
If you are someone who's not, like, as we call a weight weenie, this podcast is still for you, because it's more about a mindset of how can I make my project or like my gear more specific to me and more enjoyable for me. So, and
last caveat, don't feel like you need to do every one of these steps.
Right.
Just do what you're comfortable with. You might not want to remove a frame sheet or something. We'll get to those 5 steps, but just get in the mindset of marginal gains for weight saving, whatever that could look like.
Yeah, so we're going to go through 5 basic things that you can do that we did with this pack that are applicable to probably not just packs, but other gear as well. But
so
yeah,
our number one way of saving weight on your current pack, zipper pulls. So zipper pulls for this pack, there are these massive rubber and like paracord, rubber plastic paracord combination, like interwoven things that we cut off. We did upwards of 0.8 ounces, I think. I feel like this number is actually wrong now. We cut off,
I think it's 8 grams.
8 grams, 6 of those zipper pulls we yanked off.
They're all like, I think those are number 8.
Yeah,
or those 5.
I think they're 8.
So they're number 8 zipper pulls or zipper sliders, and they also had like the metal zipper tab on the slider. So you can imagine how large that metal zipper pull was on number 8 zipper.
With the paracord, with the plastic, with the rubber.
Yeah.
But you probably have the most experience with this Carter, and you just do reflective cord on every zipper you have pretty much.
For most things, the only thing I don't do it with would be like an EDC pack, because you need to get in and out of that pack like 900 times a week. So maybe for some of those, I wouldn't do that, because the idea isn't like, it's not, I want my pack to be light for EDC or whatever, like my work bag, but I value like being able to grab something huge at the airport and like rip it open real quick when I forget my block of cheese that they think is C4, which basically did happen.
I forgot.
Yeah.
We were together. Yeah.
When we came back from Vermont, I put a big ass block of cheese in there, and they literally flagged my bag and like brought it over because they thought it was like explosives. But anyways, so you get my point. Yes, I do this all the time. It affects. I personally think that sometimes it makes it function better, because you can make the zipper pulls longer.
Yeah.
You can make them reflective. You can make them accent the pack in a way that it didn't before. So in this case, we added one of our newer products, the 1.0 UHMWPE reflective cord, which I think looks awesome. And also, can they see this?
Not really.
But there's plenty of grip on there for you to be able to grab, and they work just the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And to confirm, that was 8 ounces of zipper pulls.
8 ounces?
8 grams. I keep missing that. 8 grams. 8 grams of zipper pulls. All right. Number 2 out of the 5 ways to cut weight in your current pack is cord and shock cord. So, well, Isaac, take it away.
I mean, yeah, most of the cordage that was on this pack, there was cordage in like the 2 or 3 collars?
2 collars.
Two collars.
2 collars and a brain, but I can't remember if the brain had cordage on it too. But at least
we took the brain off completely.
Yeah.
There's also good.
So the cordage on the 2 cinch collars, both of those were like, one of them was like a flat shoelace cord, and then the other one was probably like at least 2.5 millimeters in diameter. It was huge. And then they had like regular sized cord locks on them.
That's the killer.
Yeah. And then did it have shock cord on it? I don't remember.
Yeah, there were
like 2 pieces down for like the trekking pole loops or something.
There were like like an absurd amount of places to hold like different poles of different diameters. And
that's something I was going to say too, is that this pack didn't have as much shock cord as it had anything else, but it was still 9 grams worth of shock cord and cord locks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was mostly those cord locks, like the cord locks on the 2 collars. And then, like Carter said, there were random attachment points for ice axes or trekking poles or both. I don't even know
what else
you would put on there.
We have 3 sizes of shock cord here. I'm going to need help with this. There's 3/32.
There's 1/16, which is the smallest, 3/32, which is in the middle, and then 1/8 inch, which is the largest.
Okay, so this had largely 1/8 on it. So you can imagine what a cord lock looks like at 1/8 shock cord as well as beefy.
Which usually you don't even have to use that size of, like, smaller cord locks will still work with 1/8 inch cord, but for some reason they put like the biggest one on it. And just I know I said this from the beginning, but I think these first 2 are examples where we're talking about like a 1/2 ounce here and a 1/2 ounce there. But when you look at, especially if you're looking at the blog too, when you look at the weight difference overall, it's just that mindset of like, okay, well, you only saved an ounce by doing this, but those small things literally add up to being pounds of things that you can remove, and they don't affect anything really at all. Changing the zipper pulls didn't change anything about how you
functionality
use
difference.
Yes.
Yeah. And you can make it your own too. It's kind of cool that you can make this pack something that like we have different colors of cord. You can make that your style.
I would even encourage just replacing the shock cord for the same shock cord that it was, but check out one of our new colors that we have that might match your bag or accent your bag and be reflective, which has function. It's not just that you could cut it off.
Yeah.
You can just make it your own in general.
Yeah.
Anyways, last thing I'll say, because I'm just thinking of all the people out there that are listening to this and like, bruh, you got pliers out and ripped off the zipper pull tab or whatever, and I get it, but humor me for the rest of the podcast, and I'm sure that you'll be like, maybe I want to change my shock cord out or whatever.
When you see how much weight we saved overall, you might be convinced to think a bit longer. All right, number 3, cut excess webbing.
Yeah.
more or less enough said. But tell us what we cut off, where we cut off, and how we got away with that.
So this is one that even a lot of manufacturers recommend that you do. Like, they send it long on purpose because, again, they're trying to fit all types of body types and all different gear loadouts. So in this case, we fitted the pack to like an average person, I would say. Obviously, a bigger person, like putting the pack on me versus like on my wife, there would be a huge difference in the amount of webbing. She's a lot smaller than I am, but fitted it on an average person, and then basically just tightened it up, gave some like 3 inches of room where you could still loosen it if you need to, so that it didn't affect any functionality. And then we just cut off the rest. Yep. Great examples of this are like load lifters or the hip belt or even the sternum strap. Like, all of those things are just small pieces that when you cut them all off, you haven't affected anything on your pack. You've actually made it probably nicer to use. And then the other ones that we adjusted were like the roll top thing that goes over the top to secure it, right? That's also left long. So like, unless you're putting an animal carcass on top of your backpack,
We'll talk about that next week.
You want to have enough to put a bear can up there, or however you carry your gear, make sure that it still works for what you're going to do. But I don't think you need 9 feet of of webbing up at the top.
Yeah.
And so that's how we ended up taking this stuff off.
So the belt, the sternum strap, the load lifters, and the shoulder strap adjustments are pretty similar with most packs, but what was really different Carl was alluding to was all the straps on the outside. Just as many, like all those trekking pole attachments and ice axe attachments and other things, those all came with like a foot of webbing each. So as it gets down, there, I think 3 side compressions per side. So what this looked like in terms of specs was we cut off 4.1 ounces of webbing alone. And I mean, I have a Rubbermaid, like a small Rubbermaid bin just of webbing in my cube still, just impressed by how much there were. And then 2 ounces of buckles, because most of those webbing came with a full 1-inch size Duraflex buckle at the end of that, male, female side, everywhere. Every one of those straps had one, basically. So, I mean, overall, you're looking at 6.1 ounces of webbing and buckles that we cut off just from that technique.
That you didn't need.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that you might want 1 side compression, but I really, for this pack in particular, because of how complex and like sturdy the frame and the frame sheet are, the stabilization of your pack is not going to be affected by you having a side compression load here, especially with a roll top that can allow you to compress the bag down. Like on a frameless bag, where having it a certain shape around your bag is more important than a side compression strap or two might make more sense. But in this case, it's like this thing could probably carry like 9,000 pounds. So you're not going to notice anything from like squeezing the bag down a little bit closer to your back.
I can maybe see if you were, like as you eat your food or consume different things, or if you had a smaller load, if you're going for a shorter distance, you can maybe see having one of those side compressions on either side, just so you can cinch it down a little bit so things don't shift as you're walking. But 3 on each side is definitely overkill.
Right. And well, in this case, we probably would have left 1, although adding the roll top changes it a little bit because it does allow you to compress it, is that they were placed in spots that were like at the upper and lower extremes.
Yeah.
So like there was, for those of you watching, I'm pointing, but for those of you that are not, I'm pointing at basically the very top of the pack. There was one like right here, and then one all the way down towards the hip belt. So if we would have left one of those, you would be compressing nothing. Like, you would really want it in like the middle quadrant of what you're working on, and the middle third.
I think if there was a third, I don't remember if there was a third, then that compression was like where we eventually cut the side pocket off, which we'll get to in a few minutes as well.
Yeah, it was also like diagonal. So yeah. Anyways, webbing, cut it off. Makes you happy.
Number 4 is remove structural system. So don't freak out. This is probably the most intimidating piece that we're going to talk about. But it's important that you know your style of hiking, your preferences when hiking, and then it's all about your system as a whole too, what you're carrying, what kind of tent and sleeping bag and things, or quilt or things like that. So I'm going to turn this one over to Carter, but don't count this out yet. Picture what your style is in relation to what Carter's saying.
Yeah, so I think even more important than your style is like how much stuff you have to carry. The most important thing to me is that it's comfortable, right? So, and you're also going to have limitations on what you own. So if you already own this pack, like Jason does, there's no, like, cutting off the hip belt would just make this pack unusable and not comfortable. So that wasn't an option. We did talk about it briefly, but I was like pretty heavy on like, hey, I don't want to take this off. I think we can save weight in other ways that aren't, like, that's unrealistic.
We talked about it only in terms of like it would be a massive amount of weight cutting, but once we realized that it was integrated to the whole pack, we're like, okay, that's not worth it anymore.
Right, and I think even if it wasn't integrated, like if you could take this hip belt off, I still wouldn't do that. Like, it just doesn't make sense to. Maybe there's some pieces we could take off, but this is the part where it's like, make your gear, keep it usable, and it just wouldn't. Yes, you would save 6 pounds. The pack would basically weigh. It would be a Ripstop nylon tube, but that's not a usable backpack anymore. Now it's it's lighter, but you're carrying a drawstring gym bag, and it's probably cutting into your arms.
So what are examples of a time where someone could remove some amount of structural system?
Sure. So more and more big box manufacturers are doing this with their ultralight packs, but certainly in the cottage industry, almost all framed bags or semi-framed. And what I mean by that is that it has a plastic sheet, like a frame sheet. It's not like a metal frame. They make them all removable so that, and it doesn't affect the way necessarily that the pack carries because of the simplification of the frame itself. For instance, this has like all kinds of like carbon fiber stays and other stuff that like removing it would just alter the pack in a way that wouldn't work. But if you just have like a center aluminum stay or two on the sides, taking that out, it takes away a little bit of structure and load transfer, but it's not enough if you're carrying 10 pounds to matter. And in some ways, it'll make it more comfortable. Like the pack is going to conform to you more and can like fit tighter or whatever. But yeah, I mean, most manufacturers now, at least in the cottage space, literally say like, hey, removable frame.
Yeah.
Even the more complex ones like a Z-Pack bag, which it already is so light, there's no reason to take it off. You certainly could. It's all designed to like, you can switch out the hip belt, you could take it off. That stuff can definitely be done without too much harm.
Number 5, remove excess areas. Kind of a vague title, but that's
what I say when I go to the barber. Say, hey man, what kind of cut are you looking for? I'm like, I would just prefer that you remove the excess areas. I've actually been banned from sport clips for that.
So on this pack for the Baltoro, what that meant for us is that this thing had, it had a brain, it had an internal pack divider, it had a bladder carrier pouch, as well as 3 external pockets that had no association to inside the pack. They were just pockets that you could only reach on the outside for very little things. So those, in our mind, we decided were excess areas. Again, it depends on you. If you love that side, if you have a Baltoro 70 and you want that outside pocket, then sure, do your thing and keep that. But we kind of all deemed that most people hike with additional pouches, or like these were not helpful pockets. So those were all areas that we cut off. For us, those, or the specs on those were the hydration bladder pouch was 1.9 ounces, the brain was 6 ounces, the pack divider was 0.5 ounce, and the external pockets were 6.8 ounces.
It's like over a pound that we saved.
Yeah.
Of just, like James said, doesn't mean you have to do that, but if you were to buy a cottage pack, they're not going to have those things on them. Cottage packs do not have 6 zippered outer pockets on them.
Number 8 with Hypalon. And because you cut those off, Isaac.
Yeah.
What was that material like that you were cutting off?
I mean, it was essentially Hypalon. They also had like piping in most of them. I'm assuming for structure, but the piping was like probably like 1/8 inch diameter, like plastic cord, I guess you would call it.
Almost like cable or something.
Yeah, but yeah, there was just a lot of like reinforcement areas and like a few reflective areas that were like reflective Hypalon or something similar to that. So yeah, in general, just very heavyweight, like durable materials, and I say durable in quotations because heavier weight fabric doesn't always equate to more durable.
Yeah.
It also doesn't mean that even if it is more durable, that you need that there.
Yeah.
Right. Like the bottom of this pack is like, I don't even. It's like vinyl coated something that is like super heavy duty, which is fine. It's like a small piece. It's on the bottom of the pack. I get it. But do you need that up in the front where that part of the backpack doesn't even touch the ground barely at all? Like you're just going to be, yeah, it just doesn't make sense for those pieces to be there anyways. Even if they are more durable, there's a point of trade-off. Like, do I need high tensile strength, meaning like it can hold a lot of weight, like under load on a spot where I'm going to put my keys? No, you don't need that there. So yeah.
Not to beat a dead horse for this point, but again, it's so much to do with your preference of hiking and such. Like a hydration bladder doesn't make sense if you run with soft flasks.
Or just smart water bottles or whatever.
Right, or that.
Have you ever thought of what you just said?
Yeah. So
who the hell beats a dead horse? Like, why are you beating a horse, first off? Second off, if you are, it's just, that's very
morbid.
That's troubling.
Yeah. I think it's one of those phrases that I'd like to leave alone, but I need to think of a new one, like it's kind of ingrained.
Definitely conveys the message though.
Yeah, maybe it could be more like
too well.
Yeah.
Maybe beat a dead. Okay, everything I can think of is worse than a horse.
All right, so we said these are the 5 ways, and there's this. I thought about making this number 6, but really I just made it tip 5A. But the last option that we have is replacing features. So I made this 5A because it's all about cutting weight on your pack. So, adding something doesn't necessarily make it lighter, but sometimes that can alleviate something that you may have wanted to fix earlier. So as we mentioned, this had 2 collars under the brain before. There was like that one collar with the shock cord or the normal cord, and then one with like the shoelace cord above that. And they were maybe only 6 inches apart. Like I'm not exactly sure what went on in design there, but the 2 collars, cinch collars together just didn't work for us. So
if you've seen Dune or Star Wars Episode 5 or 6, it's like the worms that open up their mouth and they got like 10 billion teeth and then like 7 more openings inside. They got like 40 esophaguses. That's what it looked like.
Soft guys? Like special forces guys?
Esophageal epiglottis. I don't know.
Isaac,
that's what it looks like.
You were the wizard with the scissors. What did we cut off to make all this happen?
The 2 collars. we just cut it off like where they attached the. Okay, so there were 2 collars. One was like an outer collar, and then one was like a lighter denier like cinch collar. The outer collar was attached to the main frame of the pack, and we just cut like right underneath that where it was bound on the inside, and then that just got rid of both those collars.
And then we took 0.8 ounce DCF, some grosgrain. I forgot, 1/4 inch grosgrain?
Half-inch grosgrain.
With the ultralight side release buckle.
Yeah, so I basically just emulated like a roll top dry bag, if you will. Once they cut it off, I measured the full width of the top, what was now the top collar, if you will. There was just enough material left there for me to sew on a new one, so I just measured it and then made a tube, sewed that tube onto the big boy tube, also known as the Baltoro 746, and put 2 buckles on the top, and now it is a usable roll top that doesn't weigh a lot. Nothing's changed in terms of the carrying capacity. There actually might be more carrying capacity, but it's just easier to use. You now have a more watertight closure where there's 2 cinch tops. It didn't provide anything for water protection if you didn't use the brain. Even though the brain was removable, you really wouldn't want to use it without that. And yeah, it's just more usable. It's lighter, and it really was not very hard. The hardest part about sewing it was just that this thing's really heavy. So when you have that,
you had to have somebody hold the bottom of the pack up so Carter could put it.
Yeah, well, and the frame is so rigid and you can't take it out that half the time you're sewing, it's just like sewing a tube onto a tube, and then the other half it's like sewing the tube onto a tractor trailer. It's just so it's like a rigid square that you're trying to sew a circle onto, but it still wasn't too bad at all. And yeah, I'm happy with the way it works, and it ended up saving us some amount of
I was going
weight.
to say, for the specs, the previous collars weighed in at about 3.2 ounces. The new DCF collar, I'm not going to lie, we forgot to weight ahead of time, so don't hold us to this, but it's about half an ounce. I grabbed some scrap DCF, a little bit of nylon, and one of the side release buckles and tossed it on the scale, and it was half an ounce. So assuming it's close to that.
Yeah, I would say it's probably less. We can, in the blog, we can put what it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, cutting 2.7 ounces with a more functional closure system at the top.
Yeah, definitely.
And we did leave, you can't see here, you can see in the photos, we did leave that top, there's that central top buckle that goes right over the center of the pack where you can put a bear can or food or a jacket or whatever. We left that on there, and we left that long. I mean, we still cut like 8 inches off. It's still quite long, though. You could still put a bear can, still put a jacket, still put a food bag, whatever in there. So, I mean, I would argue it's maybe a more waterproof system now, not in the brain, but
I think definitely it's more waterproof.
But with it being DCF, it's a lot more.
Yeah.
So, reminder that all the products and the things that we talked about are listed in the blog. There's a ton of notes. Let's talk about actually tools real quick, because we ended up using quite a few for this pack. We mentioned some of the new components, a couple episodes that we brought on, but those Olfa scissors were crucial in this edition. I mean, they're cutting through some of the Hypalon stuff was crazy. Isaac, why don't you tell them about those scissors?
Yeah, I mean, they just slice through all that heavy stuff.
So this is not the whole topic of the episode, but like, what makes those scissors so much better than just like the standard Fiskars when you're actually going through heavy stuff?
So those scissors are like slightly serrated, and so it helps you to get like a better purchase on the material that you're cutting. So if you've ever tried using like normal scissors to cut something that's maybe slightly hard or like round, like sometimes the blades of the scissors will just like slip. You know what I mean? Like the thing you're trying to cut will just like slip out. Whereas the Olfa scissors, they're made to reduce that, right? So with the serrations, it just bites into it a little bit better.
They're also smaller, so you have a lot more dexterity in things like where you're trying to cut off a piece of webbing in front of a piece of Hypalon and not cut through the pack too many times. It's nice that they're smaller, but they still have enough leverage to cut stuff off. Yeah, like when you have a 8-inch pair of Fisker scissors or whatever we sell, it's kind of dangerous to just go in there and try to. It's like bringing a broadsword into a place where you don't want a broadsword. You feel me?
So we did use the standard 8-inch Fiskars. We use those little Olfa, or as they're commonly called around our parts, Olaf scissors. We also used a seam ripper to get some of these patches off, which brings me to kind of our final point. For something, if there's a pack that you already own, get some tenacious tape. I mean, this pack has been well loved and it looks good considering it's been around since 2004. But we weighed it entirely afterwards, so the weight is including a few tenacious tape patches from where Jason maybe fought a thorn bush, or perhaps our seam ripper slipped a little bit. I can't confirm, but yeah, get some tenacious tape, clean up some areas, and protect your pack a bit more.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to say about this is still make sure that you're practicing like proper finishing techniques in the term of using a lighter where you can to melt stuff. Because when you're cutting a lot of stuff off, most of it will be connected to a seam, so it's not that big of a deal if it frays, it just goes away. But just be mindful about things that you're cutting off, and if you need to melt down a fraying piece of webbing so that it doesn't fray through to the other side and affect like the binding or whatever. Just, the stuff that you can melt with a lighter, I would do that. It also just makes it look better so that it doesn't look like you left it under your couch for 6 months and the Roomba couldn't hit it or whatever.
But yeah, that was our project, cutting weight on a current pack that we already have. I guess Jason owns it, but also just having fun and seeing how much weight we could cut it off.
Oh, did we say? I think we should tell people now at the end.
Oh, I forgot. The final weight.
The first weight was 6 pounds?
6.39 pounds was the weight, the initial weigh-in, all the brain, all that stuff.
Okay, 6.39 pounds. So if you're by yourself, wager a guess about, you heard how much we cut off. Well, if you're really smart, you've memorized all the numbers that we said, and now you've just calculated it and you already know, in which case...
good on you.
Yeah, you're very smart. Probably not paying attention to stoplights, but that's fine. If you have somebody with you listening to this, wager something. I'm not endorsing gambling. I'm just saying maybe whoever you're with buys dinner.
So we did this internally. Carter, Isaac, Jason, and I all put our guesses in.
And Avery too, right?
And yes, I don't have hers written down because I'm a bad coworker, but she did also put one in.
Yeah.
But this is what we had. Isaac guessed 4.6 pounds. Jason guessed 4.59. He's trying to be a bit cheeky. Carter guessed 5.5. I guessed 5.2. So those were our guesses, if that helps you at all. You can see where our mindset was or how optimistic we were about this starting out. But we are super pleased to say that the final weight after all of this came in at 4.67 pounds.
Yeah, so that's almost 2 pounds of weight that we...
1.72 pounds cut off.
Almost 2 pounds for a pack that in a lot of ways, arguably, I would say, is more functional.
It's like a watermelon.
Don't get that close to Jason. He's known to crush those with his thighs.
But yeah, I mean, now you can easily carry a watermelon with you. So much easier because it has more functionality, and this pack is big enough. Actually, funnily enough, this pack is currently stuffed with the SWD pack that is normally hanging up back here on the wall. The whole pack, that whole ultralight movement pack, whatever it's called, is in there right now. 1.72 pounds. We're pretty proud of our work, and yeah, you should do it too. Let us know. Like I said, all these products, all the things that we had are linked in the blog. Check that out. Let us know what you liked and what you look forward to doing on your pack. But that'll just about wrap it up for this episode. As always, please like, rate, subscribe, review, comment, share, whatever you want. Let us know what you think about this episode, what you think about the podcast as a whole. I speak for all of us pretty much, but I know that the podcast can be a big highlight for us and getting to do some of these fun projects. So let us know what you think so we can continue to do this. And then as for future episodes, next up, we're talking to Seek Outside about hunting and ultralight hunting and stuff like that. And then in 2 episodes, we actually have our 2-year anniversary. This thing's been going on for 2 years now.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
We've got a fun episode planned for that one that you guys will see then.
Bye.
Later.
Thanks, everybody.